Jai.
His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Vachanine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pastaja Deshakarine. So today we're continuing our reading of Srimad Bhagavatam, third canto entitled The Status Quo, chapter 3 entitled The Lord's Pastimes Out of Vrindavan, and we're going to complete the chapter today with text 28. Please repeat. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Text 28, please repeat. Anam Charura Samtebhyo.
Anam Charura Samtebhyo.
Anam Charura Samtebhyo.
Anam Charura Samtebhyo.
Tattva Bhagavatarpanam.
Tattva Bhagavatarpanam.
Tattva Bhagavatarpanam.
Tattva Bhagavatarpanam.
Goviprartha Savashura.
Goviprartha Savasura.
Goviprartha Savasura.
Goviprartha Savasura.
Rane more bhuvi more dabi.
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 Anam charura samtebhyo.
Anam Charura Samtebhyo.
Tattva Bhagavatarpanam.
Tattva Bhagavatarpanam.
Goviprartha Savashura.
Goviprartha Savasura.
Rane more bhuvi more dabi.
Rane more bhuvi more dabi.
Please chant.
Anam Charura Samtebhyo.
Anam Charura Samtebhyo.
Tattva Bhagavatarpanam.
Tattva Bhagavatarpanam.
Goviprartha Savasura.
Goviprartha Savasura.
Prane more bhuvi more dabi.
Prane more bhuvi more dabi.
Anam Charura Samtebhyo.
Anam Charura Samtebhyo.
Tattva Bhagavad Arpanam.
Tattva Bhagavatarpanam.
Goviprartha Savashura.
Goviprartha Savasura.
Pranamor Bhupi Mordhabi.
Prane more bhuvi more dabi.
Anam Churura Samtebhyo.
Anam Charura Samtebhyo.
Dattva Bhagavat Arpanam.
Tattva Bhagavatarpanam.
Goviparta Swavasura.
Goviprartha Savasura.
Prane more bhuvi more dabi.
Prane more bhuvi more dabi.
Annam Charura Samtebhyo.
Anam Charura Samtebhyo.
Tattva Bhagavatarpanam.
Tattva Bhagavatarpanam.
Goviprartha Savasura.
Goviprartha Savasura.
Prane more bhuvi more dabi.
Prane more bhuvi more dabi.
Anam Charura Samtebhyo.
Anam Charura Samtebhyo.
Tattva Bhagavatarpanam.
Tattva Bhagavatarpanam.
Goviprartha Savasura.
Goviprartha Savasura.
Prane more bhuvi more dabi.
Prane more bhuvi more dabi.
Anam Charura Samtebhyo.
Anam Charura Samtebhyo.
Tattva Bhagavatarpanam. Goviprartha Savasura. Prane more bhuvi more dabi. Urasam,
highly delicious,
highly delicious.
Tebya,
Tebya,
unto the Brahmanas,
unto the Brahmanas.
Datva,
Datva,
after supplying, Bhagavat Arpanam,
Bhagavat Arpanam,
which was first offered to the personality of Godhead.
which was first offered to the personality of Godhead. Go,
cows,
Vipra,
Brahmanas,
Brahmanas, Artha,
purpose,
Asava,
purpose of living,
Shura,
all the valiant Kshatriyas,
Pranemu,
offered obeisances,
Bhuvi,
touching the ground, Murdabi, with their heads. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Thereafter, they offered the Brahmanas highly delicious foodstuffs, first offered to the personality of Godhead, and offered their respectful obeisances by touching their heads to the ground. They lived perfectly by protecting the cows and the Brahmanas. Who's speaking this verse and to whom are they speaking? Nope.
Oops.
Who is speaking to whom here?
Oh, Uddhava.
Uddhava. Who's he speaking to?
Vidura.
Vidura. So Uddhava says to Vidura, thereafter they offered the Brahmanas. Who's they?
The Yadus.
Which Yadus?
The ones that were remaining after everything. They were coming with Krishna. I don't know.
Okay, any further detail? I'm sorry?
Was that at Ravas?
Yes, Krishna has not left yet.
Oh. Is this where they go and have the big fight?
Yeah, so the Yadus are in Dwarka, that's their kingdom, and Krishna's the prince there. And Krishna is getting ready to wind up his pastimes on earth. But in order to wind up his pastimes, he first asks his associates to leave, because they will not be able to bear his absence. So those members of the Yadu dynasty that were his eternal associates, see, when the Lord comes to perform his Boma Lila, or his Lila here on Bhumi, earth, his eternal associates from the spiritual realm come with him. They expand, just like he expands. Krishna's always in Goloka Vrindavan. He never leaves his planet, Krishna Loka. So when he comes to this earth to perform his Boma Lila, he expands himself into an exact Swayam Rupa form, his own form, and he comes to our plane. So his eternal associates do the same thing. So when Krishna performs his Boma Lila, there's 3 types of personalities that are a part of his Boma Lila. One are his eternal associates who, like him, expand from their spiritual, location to appear here on earth. Secondly, are demigods. Demigods from the higher planetary systems. They have their posts, but they also partially incarnate here on earth to take part in Krishna's Leela. And indeed, if you go to the very beginning of the 10th canto, it starts, with Lord Brahma praying to Kshirodakashayi Vishnu that you please come to earth because the earth is overburdened by demons and undue military forces, and I can't tolerate this burden any longer. You please come and, alleviate the situation. So the message is sent to Brahma that you please tell the demigods that they should expand and incarnate on earth before I come, they should come to earth and play the role of my, family members. So that's the second category of entities that are in Krishna's Boma Lila, are demigods that come and enter Krishna's Boma Lila. And the third group of living entities are jivas, like you and I, you've got this opportunity in your next life, Abhimanyu. This is the goal here. If we become perfect sadhakas in this lifetime, perfect sadhakas means perfect practicing devotees, perfect aspiring devotees, perfect apprentice devotees in this lifetime, then we can take birth in Boma Lila as ourselves, jivas, who are entering Krishna's Lila for the very first time. So those are the three entities that are in Krishna's Boma Lila. His direct associates, which expand, the demigods, which also, expand and incarnate into the Lila, and regular old jivas like you and me who become perfect sadhakas and enter Boma Lila. So Krishna and his Yadu dynasty are living in Dwarka, that's their kingdom, and Krishna is getting ready to wind up his earthly pastimes. So he asks the members of the Yadu dynasty to also depart before him. So those that are his eternal associates, they stay in Dwarka. They're going to leave their bodies in Dwarka. They're going to exit the scene in Dwarka. And in the 11th canto, the point is made. Why do they stay in Dwarka? Because those that leave their bodies in the holy Dham, Vrindavan, Mayapur, Dwarka, etc., they go directly to the spiritual world. So those who are his eternal associates, they exit the scene in the holy Dham, and they go directly back to the spiritual world. Those who are not his eternal associates, those who are demigods who came to play a role in his Boma Lila, who are now being asked to exit stage left and go back to their demigod roles until, it's time for them to go back to Godhead, they don't leave their bodies in the holy Dham. They have to exit the holy Dham and go somewhere else. So Krishna asked them to go to Prabhas. So those are the Yadu folks that are in Prabhas. So those who are not eternal associates but who are demigods, they're in Prabhas, and they meet Brahmanas there. So this is what Uddhava is telling Vidura, that those Yadu, members of the Yadu dynasty, who are not eternal associates of the Lord, they went to Prabhas, and there they offered the Brahmanas highly delicious foodstuffs, first offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And they offered their respectful obeisances to them by touching their heads to the ground. They lived perfectly by protecting the cows and Brahmanas. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The behavior exhibited by the descendants of Yadu in the pilgrimage site of Prabhas was highly cultured and exactly to the point of human perfection. The perfection of human life is attained. Who would like to attain the perfection of human life? Why do something half-baked? We ask you to go to the kitchen and please you cook some cupcakes for the Lord. And you pull them out of the oven half-baked. What's that all about? No one's going to eat them. You can't offer them. So do it perfectly or don't do it at all. So the perfection of human life is attained by following three principles of civilization. If you do these three things, your human life will be perfect. 1, protecting the cows. 2, maintaining the Brahminical culture. And 3, above all, so this means this is the most important one, becoming a pure devotee of the Lord. Now, Brahminical culture doesn't just mean Brahmins following Brahminical culture. Brahminical culture means everybody in the society. What it means when it says Brahminical culture, it means that culture which has the Brahmanas as the head, because the Brahmanas guide society, and they instruct all others how to live, how to work, how to dedicate their lives to the Supreme Lord, how to perfect their lives. And they, instruct on different principles of living. They're the ones that are instructing others about cow protection, right? About becoming a pure devotee. So Brahminical culture does not just refer to the practice done by Brahmanas. Even if you're a Shudra or a Vaishya or a Kshatriya, you are a part of Brahminical culture, which is synonymous with the culture of Varnashrama Dharma. Really. So, without becoming a devotee of the Lord, one cannot perfect one's human life. The perfection of human life is to be elevated to the spiritual world, where there's no birth, no death, no disease, and no old age. That is the highest perfectional aim of human life. Without this aim, any amount of material advancement in so-called comforts can only bring the defeat of the human form of life. So if we actually have an aim, I aim to be, an Olympic athlete, gold medalist, Olympic athlete, right? Well, okay, if I'm really aiming for that, you should see that like every day I'm practicing, I'm exercising, right? Not that, 6 months go by and you never see me do anything, just sit and watch TV all day or something. The other day somebody sent me a little clip of figure skating, ice skating, figure skating, they do very beautiful. And it was a brother and a sister. He's 18 and she's 16. And it was so amazing. I was just like, wow. Do you know how much practice went into that? Like years and years. It's not like, I practiced for 3 months, 16 and 18. They've obviously been practicing since they were 5 years old. Because that's their aim, they want to go to the Olympics and be, gold medalists. So if we actually have the aim to go back to Godhead, we should be like intensely practicing every single day without fail. Just to win a silly little gold medal in a sports event requires an insane amount of dedication. What to speak of what we need to do to reach the perfection of life. So Prabhupada said that without this aim of going back to Godhead, any amount of material advancement and so-called comforts can only bring the defeat of the human form of life. You might become a gold medalist. You might become the emperor of the world. You might become the wealthiest person ever in human history. But all that which you achieve, those comforts, only bring about the defeat of the human form of life, because it doesn't assist you in going back to Godhead. Prabhupada continues, Brahmanas and Vaishnavas do not accept any foodstuff which is not first offered to the personality of Godhead. Foodstuff offered to the Lord is accepted by the devotees as the mercy of the Lord. That's what the word prasadam means. It means mercy. After all, the Lord supplies all kinds of foodstuff, both to the human being and to other animals. A human being must be conscious of the fact that all foodstuffs, namely grains, vegetables, milk, water, etc., the prime necessities of life, are supplied for mankind by the Lord. And such foodstuffs cannot be manufactured by any scientist or materialist in a laboratory or factory established by human effort. So Prabhupada's making the point here that a human being must be conscious of the fact that all food is supplied for us by the Lord. So gratitude, appreciation. Now that's not the prime reason why we offer food. Here Prabhupada was stressing the human should offer food to the Lord so that they can be conscious of this fact, that all food is the mercy of the Lord. Many traditions, I grew up in a Catholic tradition, many traditions don't offer their food to God. They cook for themselves. Yay, we're going to eat. then they sit down, and before they take dinner, they say a little prayer, you know, thank you, Lord, for this nice food. Thank you for giving us our daily bread. So they're also acknowledging that their food comes from God. It's not made in a factory. And even, oh no, I buy so many processed foods, you know, fancy crackers and fancy breads and this and that from the factory. We make food in the factory. Yeah, but where'd you get the ingredients? Right? Where'd you get all the ingredients that you made those from? Just like one time, a couple of scientists said, you know, they spoke to the sky, oh God, we don't need you anymore. Why don't you need me anymore? Oh, we've discovered how to create life, so we don't need you anymore. He said, oh really? You can create life? Yes. Okay, well show me. So they bent down and they scooped up some dust from the earth. Because they said, we can do it just like you. Because according to the Bible, you know, life was created from the dust of the earth or whatever. So they scooped down, they bent down and they scooped up some dust from the earth. Just see how we can create life from the dust of the earth. And the voice from the sky, God, said, whoa, wait a minute. You have to create the ingredients. You have to create the dust, just like I created the dust. So like that, we can create food, so-called create food in the laboratory. But where'd you get the ingredients? So we, the Vaishnavas, don't offer food to the deity so that we can appreciate that food comes from him. We're like a step higher than that, or at least we're supposed to be, offering food just for his pleasure. It's not that, ooh, we're going to have, you know, cake and ice cream tonight. Let's offer that to Krishna. Anyway, it's a very subtle science of offering food to the Lord without enjoying it, even in a subtle way. One time, my very first time in the deity kitchen in Chicago, I think it was Janmashtami of '85, I was asked to help in the kitchen or whatever, some piddly little job, cutting vegetables or something. And the pujari came to make the plates. And so they pulled out of the refrigerator this tray, which at the time I didn't even know what it was, but it turned out it was sandesh. Anyway, it was a tray of sandesh, and they made it in such a way that you bake it and then you cut it into squares. So they pulled out the tray from the refrigerator, and it was this beautiful, like, lime green color, you know? So I'm sitting here cutting the vegetables, and they pulled the tray out so they can scoop out a few pieces for the offering. And I said, oh, that's such a beautiful green color. I immediately got chastised. You're not supposed to enjoy the Lord's offering before the Lord enjoys it. And like, I didn't even know what it was, you know? I said I was trying to defend myself, which I probably shouldn't have done, but I wasn't lusting over it. I was just saying that it was a pretty color. And they said, yeah, but that means you're enjoying it visually. So we're not supposed to appreciate the offering before it goes on the Lord's plate, before it goes on the altar. We're not even supposed to talk about, you know, oh, we're making pizza today, or we're making, you know, whatever, some fancy something. It's supposed to be like nobody even knows what's being offered until it comes off the altar. So it's very subtle science about not enjoying something before it's offered. So, the intelligent class of men are called Brahmanas, and those who have realized the absolute truth in his supreme personal feature are called Vaishnavas. But both of them accept foodstuffs which are the remnants of sacrifice. Sacrifice is ultimately meant to satisfy the Yajna Purusha of Vishnu. In Bhagavad Gita 3:13 it is said that one who accepts foodstuffs as the remnants of sacrifice is freed from all sinful reactions, and one who cooks foodstuffs for maintenance of his body takes in all kinds of sins which lead only to suffering. The foodstuffs prepared by the Yadus at the Prabhas pilgrimage site to offer to the bona fide Brahmanas there were all offered to the personality of Godhead Vishnu. The Yadus offered their sincere obeisances by touching their heads to the ground. The Yadus, or any enlightened family in Vedic culture, are trained for attainment of human perfection by total cooperation of service between the different divisions of social orders. So we have the 4 Varnas, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. They all do their respective occupations in service to society, and it's all cooperative, just like the parts of the body. You know, the brain should not be thinking, oh, I do such an important service, you know, and the little toe does such an insignificant service. No, they all appreciate each other's service and they work interdependently as one coherent unit. Prabhupada concludes the purport. The word rasam is also significant here. Hundreds of delicacies can be prepared simply by the combination of grains, vegetables, and milk. All such preparations are in the mode of goodness and therefore may be offered to the personality of Godhead. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 9:26, the Lord accepts only foodstuffs which are within the range of fruits, flowers, leaves, and liquids, provided they're offered in complete devotional service. They have to be offered in complete devotional service, not mishra devotional service, not devotional service which is mixed. Mishra means mixed with, you know, our own selfish desires. So it's very difficult as a householder because obviously at home we're cooking for our tongue. Okay, kiddos, what do you want for dinner tonight? Oh, you want tacos? Okay, we'll make tacos. Right? Very difficult. So we might not be able to offer our food at home in complete devotional service. We can only try our best. But at the temple, we must maintain that standard. That we only offer food in complete devotional service. Not that we're talking about it ahead of time, thinking about it ahead of time, and in that way subtly enjoying it ahead of time. Very, very. Otherwise, Prabhupada said here, he only accepts it. First of all, it has to be in that category that we know, you know, pure vegetarian, and it has to be, he said, only provided they're offered in complete devotional service. It's not true that everything that goes on the altar and comes off the altar, we may have tried to offer it, but how do you know Krishna accepted it? So we have to be very, 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 very strict so that to the best of our ability, it's getting accepted. Devotional service is the only criterion for a bona fide offering to the Lord. The Lord assures that he positively eats such foodstuffs offered by the devotees. So, judging from all sides, the Yadus were perfectly trained, civilized persons. And they're being cursed by the Brahmana sages. We're going to hear about how they get cursed by the Brahmanas, who they're just now feeding very nicely. They're ultimately going to get cursed by them. Their being cursed by the Brahmana sages was only by the desire of the Lord. The whole incident was a warning to all concerned that no one should behave lightly with Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. We're going to hear, we just concluded the chapter. We're going to hear in the next chapter how these boys, these young Yadus, after being so nice to the Brahmanas, they become drunk and they offend the Brahmanas in a frivolous way. And therefore they get cursed. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 3rd canto, 3rd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Lord's Pastimes Out of Vrindavan. We'll stop there, see if there's any discussion.
Can you give some definitions of Brahminical culture? Could you give some examples?
Yeah, Brahminical culture means that culture which holds the Brahmanas as the head. Today's culture is not Brahminical culture. The Brahmanas are thrown aside, they're not listened to, they're taxed. You're not supposed to even tax the Brahmanas. They're supposed to be given all their necessities of life in charity. And the governmental leaders, the Kshatriyas, are supposed to take all their advice from the Brahmanas. The Brahmanas are not involved in politics. They don't hold positions. They never receive a salary. They never receive, something under the table, some kind of favor or bribe. They're completely detached, and they're representatives of the Vedic knowledge. They only speak not their opinion. They only speak what the Vedas say. And they advise the Kshatriyas, you should do this, you should do that, da 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 da. And then the Kshatriyas assimilate that advice and execute it. So in Brahminical culture, the whole society would practice cow protection. And if there were people that ate meat, okay, you can eat, but you have to wait for the animal to die. At least you have to do it according to how Shastra allows. So the Brahminical culture means that culture in which the Brahmanas guide society so that every word, action, and thought of all the members of society were in line with scriptural guidelines. So cleanliness, everybody had to practice cleanliness, not just the Brahmanas. But cleanliness is like one of the things that stand out with Brahmanas, you know. With Kshatriyas, the thing that really stands out is heroism. Doesn't mean they're not clean. Vaishyas, the thing that stands out is their ability to take $1 and make it $1,000. But it doesn't mean they're not clean. Shudras, the thing that stands out is that they're expert at whatever trades and skills they have at serving society with them. But it doesn't mean they're not clean. Just that with the Brahmanas, that's the thing that like stands out. So we don't have Brahminical culture in today's world. We're trying to practice Brahminical culture in our devotee society, though.
Well, when my husband was the one I have to give credit. He got me to eat a very sattvic diet, and at first I was kind of not so into it because my father, he always said, eat whatever you're given because don't be picky because he was in a concentration camp. Long story. But anyway, so what happened was so I started doing research, and my gosh, when I found out the factory foods, the contamination, like animal feces or insect parts and other debris and the things that just come in factories that FDA allows a certain amount. That kind of convinced me that if you can offer something to Krishna, it should be as pure as possible. It's really, it kind of bugs me now. If I give him something that's below par, we'll know what it went through in the factory.
Yeah. And slaughterhouse milk, God knows what's all in
should
there.
be really clean. You're talking about cleanliness. So that's really impure. So
Mm-hmm.
the Lord will accept.
Yeah, because Prabhupada said, the Lord will accept that which is offered in complete devotional service. So complete means it covers all the bases.
Really thinking about the Lord instead of our own instant, because it's such a convenience food,
Yeah.
More convenient.
So we're fortunate in New Taliban because we have our ahimsa milk and we're trying to make organic vegetables and fruits, so to the best of our ability. We have to keep improving, right? Homemade cane syrup,
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
You were talking about the 3 types of personalities, and so when these demigods who were the associates of the Lord as the yadus went to the place of pilgrimage for Vas, is that not also the holy Dham, and were those Brahmanas just
They're places of
ordinary
pilgrimage.
Excuse
It's
me?
a place of pilgrimage, but it's not the holy Dham where Krishna performs his leelas.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then those Brahmanas, would they be like the ordinary jivas?
yeah,
Because they're actually they're part of that leela, I guess, because the yadus were interacting with them and
yeah.
accepting things. Okay.
And then when they leave, they go back to their demigod positions for, so many, many, many more years until they're called back to Godhead.
What about those Brahmanas? If they're interacting with the pure devotees that they are, as associates, what kind of benefits they must get?
Mm-hmm.
To be able to be there, I guess.
Right.
Yes?
Yeah, I would think so. I think so.
Everybody benefits.
Anybody
Everyone
who's
benefits from pure devotee.
Kaivalya.
And then, you mentioned the demigods, the devotees, and the jivas, and the others that came from the spiritual world. What about demons? They could come from, from a previous birth, they were cursed or whatever. But aren't there also, like in the pastimes of Krishna, there's the asuras also. So the demigods, they live sort of like in the heavenly planets, but the asuras, do they become, are they eternally asuras, or do they, go up and down, or is it like the demigods? They're kind of like they're posts.
Yeah,
What do you think about that? Because we
There's
have
not one-
modern day demons as well.
yeah, there's not one pat answer for that, because we have, for example, Putana, who, she got to go to Goloka and be in a Vatsalya Rasa with Krishna, you know? We hear about Shishupal and Dantavakra, they were actually Jai and Vijay on their third birth.
He got the four-armed form.
Yeah, so some get liberation. You know, Shishupal and Dantavakra, they went back to Vaikuntha to be Jai and Vijay again, you know? So Kamsa, he's described as previously being the demon Kalanemi, who was killed by Vishnu when the demigods and asuras had a big, huge war. He was killed by Vishnu in that battle. So he was really angry, so he took birth as Kamsa, again wanting to kill Vishnu. So it's not one pat answer. You know, they all have their history and they all have their future. Is that okay?
So there's hope for the asuras.
Of course. And in Lord Chaitanya's time, there's a lot of hope, because he came not to kill them, but to kill the demonic propensity. You know? Gokul Ranjana had his hand up. We'll go with him first, and then Mahalakshmi.
Just one quick question and then another one. Who was it you said, or Lakshmi Machine said, was previously at somebody and then they became Putana? Who was that?
The sister of,
I'm trying to remember all night.
Yeah, yesterday he said, I said, what was that?
I heard it before, now I've already
Yeah.
forgotten.
Yeah, I too.
Sister of Bali, was it?
Yeah.
Bali, okay. So, the question, alright, so, we briefly touched on, yesterday we started talking about the concept of Daivavarnashram. And, this is something that ISKCON has been grappling with for a very long time. Well, a long time meaning the existence of ISKCON. And, so that the rigid, in the sense that I'm a Brahmin, in this particular time frame you're talking about, that's what they did. They wouldn't do anything else but be Brahmins. And whereas what my understanding with us is that, at least in the initial stages, Daivavarnashram means we're flexible because we're Vaishnavas. And there's actually an example of, in the Krishna Lila with Nanda Maharaj, after I think Trinavakta, after about the second or third attack of the Asuras, the men get together and they're in one forest, I can't remember the name of the forest, something like Maha something. And they said, I think Bhagavan told me some things, and I'm thinking that maybe it's too dangerous here, so we should move to Vrindavan. So they pack up all their gear, and then it says that some of the coward men got their bows and arrows, and they acted as protectors. In other words, they didn't call up the Kshatriyas to come along, the police force. They were sort of interchangeable, and which I thought was like an amazing, for me, I've read it so many times, but then about 2 years ago I was reading it and I thought, oh my God. So that this is something that because one of the issues is that if you tell somebody, well, you're a Vaishya, it's obvious you're a Vaishya, and then they get insulted, say, no, I'm a Brahmin. How do you make it when you already have grown adults living in Western culture? And the other thing is that we're basically, we're in Kali Yuga, and that's not really there's so much debate about the real point of Prabhupada talking about Varnashram. It's actually already there. There are professors, there are people who make money, there are people that like to be in the army or policemen. So the natural aspects of varnashram is in place, but it's not so structured. And so basically what I'm trying to say is that when we talk about varnashram, we're not talking about there'll be just, well, maybe in the future, but in the initial stages, we're going to be flexible. Like when you were living in a temple in the 70s or 80s, you could be engaged in almost any way, except for certain things you probably couldn't do or something. Everybody was interchangeable. You didn't hold fast. You just did what was the needed. And so when we speak about varnashram, are we talking about that kind of flexibility? Or are we talking about really trying to create simply Brahmins, simply Kshatriyas?
Yeah, everyone will have their main, primary quality of work through which they serve the community. But it doesn't mean they're rigid and therefore can't do anything else. Like, I'm sorry, but we have devotees that say, I can't clean the bathroom because I'm a Brahmana. That's Shudra work. So I can't clean the bathroom because I'm a Brahmana. You know, that's wrong.
But
Probably
somebody could say, I can't lead a kirtan because I can't sing.
Right, if you have the inability,
Yeah.
like, I can't play a musical instrument, you know,
But then you don't
don't
say,
have
I'm
the
not,
ability.
I'm too
But it's not that I
difficult.
don't want to or I refuse to,
Yeah.
I just don't have musical
Actually,
ability.
today is I actually just read in the Gita, no matter what position you're in, you still, under the influence of material nature. So, say you may be a Brahmin, but there may be some instance where you may have to kill like a Kshatriya, instance like animal sacrifice, for instance. Just because you're a Brahmin and you're supposed to be, tolerant and peaceful, doesn't mean you may not necessarily have, certain situations where you
Yeah.
may have to do something of, a lower class's feature.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
point is, Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita that the three modes of material nature are always in competition, and sometimes this one's winning, and sometimes that one. So we're all in that crazy boat, where the waves are like this. Even if you are a Brahmana and mostly unsituated in the mode of goodness, 30 minutes later you're totally in the mode of passion. We're not in control. None of us are really Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, or Vaishyas, because first of all, technically you can't be one of those three unless you were born from a Garbhadana Samskara ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
We were all born like cats and dogs by just random sex, So, scripture says we're all born Shudra. So, with training, we manifest our qualities as, Vaishya or Kshatriya or Brahmana or whatever. But that's not our identity. That's just the quality of work by which you serve the community, the society. It doesn't mean you're rigid and you can't do anything else. That's just your primary. You might be a policeman. Well, does that mean when you're at home you can't mow the lawn? Well, that's not in the job description of a policeman, that you mow the lawn or change diapers. That's not in the, So we have our main, service to society, but doesn't mean we can't do all these other things. Do the needful, be practical. Okay, I think Mahalakshmi had her hand up. Okay.
It kind of goes off the subject back to where Kaivalya was at.
Okay.
So, the demoniac, the lower planetary system, they just,
No, the demons don't live in the lower planetary system.
no,
The Asuras are actually higher than the humans, and they live in Bhuvar Loka. There are planets that are above Bhumandala, where we live, but below the higher planets of Maharloka, etc., and Svarga. So they're actually, Bhagavatam says, it goes humans, then Asuras, and then the Devas. The lower planetary systems doesn't mean that they're the demoniac, but they were very gross materialists, karmis, not karmis, but vikarmis, and, mode of ignorance.
so, in that category, those gross materialists, do they just that? You went there, is it like,
They can do either, just like mode of goodness. If you die in the mode of goodness, some who die in the mode of goodness go to the planets of the demigods. And some who die in the mode of goodness take birth as Brahmanas on earth. So,
So then
many factors involved.
so then it's just the whole karmic pool again?
There's so much. What your desires were, your aspirations, the modes of nature, there's so much. So many factors involved. So some of those who die in the mode of ignorance can take birth in animal species, or they can plummet to lower planetary systems.
So what's better?
What's there?
But no, what's better?
Oh,
To be an animal or to be in the lower planetary? What is it, is there like a karmic,
well,
like
I
what
heard,
is-
but I don't recall reading.
Can you,
But I remember a devotee explaining that when you exit the lower planetary systems, you take birth in this realm in the lower species, and then
Train up
go 1, 2, 3, 4,
animals?
evolve. But I don't
Uh-huh.
remember reading that anywhere. I
You
suppose
know,
it's
there's a
something.
verse in the Bhagavad Gita, I don't remember what chapter, where Krishna says the intricacies of karma. It's so,
Mm-hmm.
the best you just understand what is vikarma, what is karma, and what is nishka.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's so many factors that
Mm-hmm. It's very complicated,
it's like trying to
like a multivariable differential equation or something. You just can't figure it out. Okay, Bhakti Mohini's next.
Okay, mine is very practical. You said factory food, right?
Factory food.
Factory food. So when we don't have tomato or something in the
Mm-hmm.
kitchen, we use the container.
Cans.
So, okay. So what is the good if we make without the
Yeah, so
tomato or
each
something?
temple would have to make their standards that they follow. Some temples will not use any canned or frozen foods except frozen peas, which Prabhupada used. Other temples will allow. Some temples will not use papadums because they're made industrially.
It's like pasta.
And some temples won't offer pasta noodles on the
No,
altar. That doesn't mean we
pasta.
can't eat them. When they
No,
say
we can eat them often.
not, and you can offer like to a picture, but not on the altar, in your own home or with pictures,
No,
etc.
it's fine.
So each temple has to make their standards due to practicality and availability and manpower and finances, and everybody's got to make their standards.
That's fine, standard. What is the better?
What is the
You
what?
make without it food, or you make tasty, nice food with the.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Every temple's got to figure that out.
What is better? If I'm in the kitchen, I can make without tomato.
Right.
So what should I do? I'm asking you. What is
How
the
do you feel?
better?
However you feel inspired, Mataji, but what she's saying, it'll come to you. As you work, you'll get ideas, what you can do, what's.
There should be a standard.
For a
not
long
that
time,
each
I was
cook makes
afraid
their
to
own
use-
decision.
I was afraid to use vitamin D3 milk because I thought there's fish oil, but I found out
They don't
it's
do that
nano.
anymore. They don't do that anymore.
Yeah,
It's not from
great.
fish oil anymore. It used to be.
Like I used to avoid it, just get the
Yeah.
non-D.
Yeah, but my point is, the cook doesn't have to be mental. There should be a standard. That in this temple, we do or do not allow such and such item. Then you don't have to think about it.
Means you have to ishtigoshis for the cooks. The kitchen should be.
Can I go back to the other
Some
question real
discussion.
quick? Oh, no, about the position, like the Varnashram, like, I think you answered the question, I just wanna get this confirmed. Is it possible for someone to be situated in a Shudra, job, but they can develop Brahminical qualities, like a Devic Sudra? Is that possible?
Yeah, well, especially in this society, if you go out and get a job, that's not, the material world's not functioning according to Varnashram.
Right, so there's no
Everybody's
bar to
getting
becoming
paid.
Brahminical.
Everybody's getting paid, even you're a teacher, even you're a priest,
Right,
they're getting salaries.
oh,
So technically, they're not Brahmanas, because a Brahmana cannot accept a salary,
right.
They cannot.
Let's do that.
accept a salary. They lose their Brahminical status as soon as they accept a salary.
Well, I'm wondering about the qualities, like the Brahminical qualities are
Mhm.
not exempt from anyone, whatever position,
Right.
right?
Right,
Just wanna make that
right.
clear.
Your Varna is defined by the major way that you serve society.
Okay.
Are you a teacher? Then that means you're a Brahmana. But technically, Brahmanas aren't supposed to take salaries. So that's why Prabhupada didn't put us in these categories. He said, Daiva Varnashram, just be a pure devotee of the Lord, then all the other things that are faulty and mixed up
Right,
and
being
incomplete, don't worry
that
about it.
also involves like Brahminical qualities, like, no.
Yeah, But real Brahminical qualities. Prabhupada defines a Brahmin as one who knows Brahman. And for one to know Brahman, he says, one has to be involved in the service of Brahman, which means you have to serve Bhagavan, right? So Prabhupada actually defined Brahmana as one who knows Brahman, and ultimately that means you have to know Bhagavan. So it ultimately means you're a devotee.
Okay.
So he wanted us to be real Brahmanas, means those who know, right?
Yeah.
Vedanti tat vidas tat yajnanam advayam brahmati brahmaniti bhagavaniti shabdite. That we know the one non-dual substance manifests in three ways: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. That's a real Brahmana.
Thank you.
Okay, one last point, right, Bhakti Maharaj.
Yeah.
There we have, stop.
It's, have you already in the